Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard the Audire Astra for another... well, I guess it is a Honkai Star Rail stream, but not this usual type of Honkai Star Rail stream. Hello, Wraith, Cole, Atanashi, good to see you. Oh, and Cass, good to see you all here today. As today, we are not... The focus is not on the gameplay of Honkai Star Rail. We are focused on lore. In particular, we're going to be doing a deep dive into Firefly's trailers, into the lore of the Glamoth and the Swarm. And so the reason I'm doing this, it's mainly because of the second animated short. So miHoYo released 3 trailers to go with Firefly, and we'll be going through all of them today. But the main focus today is on the second one. Also, mic's a little out of position. Give me a second. So the main focus on the second one, the animated short, Embers of Glamoth. And the reason why I find this short very interesting, so miHoYo has made animated shorts for Star Rail in the past, but in the past, these have mainly focused on like more esoteric, like small scale things with lots of magic and like mental battles and illusions involved. Firefly's animated short is the first time we see like real physical, large scale battles in Star. This is the first time we've seen war in Star Rail. And that's a very different perspective that we don't normally see in the game or in most of the other content. Is this going to be like StarCraft? Why would it be like StarCraft? Cole, what are you on about? Yes, glasses on too. This is a lore stream, so we're putting on the glasses. I gotta look smart for this. Anyways, so for those who are not familiar with Star Rail, there's a character. Well, actually, I'm assuming you know who Firefly is. What is Glamoth? Glamoth is the faction that Firefly originates from. And let me get into... Yes, first we're going to get into the game so we can read... First we're going to read the item descriptions for the Glamoth's Iron Cavalry Regiment, or the Permanent Frontline Glamoth item set, because this sets the background for what we know. It sets the this is the foundation for most of what we know about Glamoth. Yes, item descriptions. I have mentioned before, Cole, miHoYoverse's approach to lore in Genshin and Star Rail, it is very FromSoft. It is like we go digging deep into the item descriptions for bits of lore here. Hi, Tommy. You were tabbed out. Skill issue. But welcome, Tommy. Good to see you here. All right. I hope this works. All right. Here we are. We're in the relic sets. So, several patches ago, they introduced this relic set called Permanent Frontline Glamoth, comprised of Glamoth's Silent Tombstone, and the second is Glamoth's Iron Cavalry Regiment. And so, you can see here, Glamoth's Silent Tombstone. The flourishing empire of Glamoth turned into dust. There was no evidence of its former glory. Only the debris of stardust, mechas, warships, and the corpses of the swarm were left drifting in the vacuum to form a river of residua, preserving the original battle scene of the bloody war fronts and serving as a monument to its downfall. The second one, the planar sphere. Encapsulated in the planar sphere is the renowned shape-shifting Utheka of the Glamoth Empire's Iron Cavalry. Countless silver mechas were loaded into warships and sailed to the outer edges of the galaxy to fend off the vicious swarm from deep space. I think most people are probably not going to know this word, Utheka, so that Ootheca refers to the egg case of certain types of insects. And that's a very interesting to think. I don't know how well you guys can see on it, because like the image is quite small, even in the game. But I'm gonna try to make it as big as I can. So this image here on the right, this is the biggest I can get it. You can see this is a sphere, and you can see a SAM mech inside the sphere with all sorts of cables leading into it. He said, so they call this, so this seems to be representing how the SAM, or some kind of casing for the SAM mechs, or possibly even the people inside. And they call it an Ootheca, which is, we're going to get into why they call it that. But it's a very interesting choice of term, considering, you know, they're fighting bugs here. Anyways, and go into the details. Oh, here, backstory. More reading. I'm sorry, I apologize in advance, Tommy. There's gonna be some reading here. Glamoth's Iron Cavalry Regiment, the Welkin Empire of Glamoth, enjoyed a vast territory spanning tens of thousands of light years, ambitiously setting its sight on the cosmos. Welkin, okay, if you play Genshin, you probably know about the Welkin Pass. Welkin means like firmament. In this context, I think the term Welkin just means like the heavenly empire of Glamoth. Basically just saying it's a fancy term to say it's a space empire. That's basically it. Don't put, the word welcome here doesn't add too much significance. But at the height of the empire's power, Her Majesty Empress Titania built a magnificent fleet, vowing to bring the fruits of civilization to all the barbaric borders, allowing them a taste of the empire's benevolence in hopes of uniting them under one rule. However, the expedition was eventually halted by endless waves of raging insectoids coming from beyond the sky. Glamoth's armies fought and failed again and again, colonies were scattered, and the proud Iron Fleet fell one after another. Besieged by the monsters with compound eyes and sheathed wings, the cries of the people of Glamoth were drowned out by despair, and the Welkin Empire was shattered from then on. Until one day, knights clad in mechanical armor descended from the sky and wiped out the sun-swallowing swarm. Since then, the silver-white Iron Knights have traveled to and from the various star systems in the Empire, crossing the devastated territories and fighting back against the calamity that wiped out the galaxy. They were like warriors born to fight the swarm. No one knew the faces lying beneath the mass of the Iron Cavalry, but their arrival was like a gift from the gods, bringing the light of day back to the human world. Under the Empress's command, Glamoth's Iron Cavalry charged across the skies, finally stemming the tide of enemies and bringing a moment of respite to the Empire. But in the never-ending battle against their archenemy, the Empire started becoming more and more like its adversary. More and more Iron Cavalry flew high into the sky, blotting out the heavens just as the swarm did on that fateful day. The look people cast on the Empress and the cavalry turned to one of fear, a fear akin to what they felt to the swarm, or toward the swarm. Perhaps one day the Empire would attain the victory it so desired. But on that day, will Glamoth still be a paradise for humanity to rest in? The Iron Cavalry Regiment formed the last line of defense at the border of Glamoth, where the battle raged on endlessly. Upon their warships, the Silent Knights bore a mission, carrying the hopes of the entire Empire, and faced the tides of enemies, drowning out the stars. So, one thing I want to point the TLDR for this, first off. So, Glamoth was a galactic empire that one day was attacked by the swarm, and they created the Iron Cavalry to wipe out the swarm. One thing I think is notable about this particular lore blurb is it seems to be written in the it seems to come from a time period in the middle of this war. Because we know from the next item, the other item, that this war does end. But this one seems to be written while it's ongoing. So that suggests this is written from an in-universe perspective. And when we're talking about in-universe sources that are written from an in-universe perspective, I think it's important to always read those with a grain of salt. When talking about mostly other franchises, but I see a lot of lore discussions in other franchises, you tend to sometimes make the mistake of regarding in-universe sources as like absolute, as authoritative, as like third-person official, not to say official, as like out-of-universe canon. And that's not necessarily true. So in-universe lore, it represents the perspective of someone who lives in the world, and they can be wrong about things, as we will see very soon. And also, particularly in the context of Star Rail, this is even more complicated because Star Rail has a faction called the History Fictionologists, and their entire job is to go around and mess up people's understanding of history. So anything we see from in-universe, unless it's very trustworthy, we have to take it with a grain of salt because it could be messed up by the history fictionologist. It seems as if the Iron Cover existed before the swarm itself. So that's what it makes it sound like. Because again, it's written from this in-universe perspective. I think this is written from the perspective of Glamoth's people. So the people of Glamoth don't know where the Iron Cavalry came from. And that's because it was kept a secret from them. Why was it kept a secret? Well, let's see what the other item has to say about this. Oh, hello, gentle noob. Welcome aboard. Love a job you can have. This was my sources that I made it. Yeah, the Hillary have a job. It's like me when I spread misinformation on the internet. That's literally their job. No, the Russian bots. Okay, for the rope. Glamoth's silent tombstone. Historians of the Intelligentsia Guild believe that the Republic of Glamoth was destroyed by the Scourge of the Swarm. Another view claims that the Republic of Glamoth was destroyed by how it completely overshot its powerful enemy. So note that they call it here the Republic of Glamoth, whereas previously it was called the Empire of Glamoth. And I noted on Wednesday when I was playing through the Farewell Penacony story quest, Jade also calls it the Republic of Glamoth. So which seems to support the notion, as this description says later, that the Empire was a lie. Did the higher-ups of Glamoth essentially poke a beehive? I don't think so, Cole. So what we know about the Swarm was at one point like a threat to the entire multiverse. Like the Swarm was going to eat everything in existence, and it required like multiple other gods banding together, some of whom were mortal enemies, to defeat the Swarm's god. And what Glamoth was facing was like the leftovers of that Swarm. But basically, the Swarm doesn't need a reason to descend upon planets and eat everything on them. They just do that. Could Republic, what does it mean before the Empire, like in Star Wars? Cass, we are about to get to that. In order to turn the tide in the horrific invasion of the Swarm, the ruling council threw down the gauntlet and resolved to alter the essence of humanity in an effort to adapt to the war. We will create a weapon born to fight. The result of all of this was titanium. The Empress, who holds no power, telepathically commands and controls the knights connected to her. In the dreams that these warriors are woven to, the sole meaning of their existence is to guard Titania and her empire. In their short lives, these studied, fought, received the Empress's commands, faced the enemy fearlessly, and died with honor. So this is the answer to your question, Cass. So To explain, basically, the Empire never existed. The Empire was a lie that was told to the Iron Cavalry, that was told to Firefly and her fellow soldiers. I don't know why. My speculation is that it was done to inspire greater loyalty into them. I think that possibly the Republic of Glamoth thought that when they were creating these genetically modified super soldiers that were born for the sole purpose of being weapons, they thought they would be more unquestioning and more loyal if they perhaps created this idea that they were dedicating themselves to the single person in the Empress who controlled or who represented the entire empire. Whereas in reality, the Empress was basically just a pawn that was used as this like telepathic nexus for controlling the Iron Cavalry. I think it's a bit of a weird choice for them to make, but maybe they had good reasons for why they came up with this lie. To kind of as a way, maybe like hide the ugliness of the Republic and to create this like this dream of an empire. Aeon, a propagation was awful for making the swarm. It says, perhaps it might not be smart to draw the intention. Well, we don't know. So it seems the perspective from Glamoth, at least what was known to the public, is that the swarm just descended upon them out of nowhere. I don't think they had any knowledge of the swarm's existence, so I don't think they like intentionally poked a beehive or anything. Yes. No one knew when this falsehood was revealed. Was it from the day when the old humans in Glamoth's territories fell below a certain percentage? Was it the day when scientists realized that the Empress was beginning to revolt against her captivity? Or maybe the day when the swarm's onslaught dissipated into thin air? So this tells us a few things. For one thing, it tells us that at some point, Titania, the Empress, was beginning to revolt or revolted against the Empire. That may have, or not the Empire, revolted against the Republic. That may have been a big, one would think that might have been a big moment for Glamoth in terms of hurting their ability to fight the swarm. But also, very importantly, this seems to suggest that Glamoth Glamoth actually won, quote unquote, against the swarm. And that the swarm just one day just left and disappeared into thin air. But keep in mind again, this is also written from an in-universe perspective. The last item description seemed to be written from the perspective of the people of Glamoth. This seems to be written from the historians at the IPC. So they aren't necessarily right. And their suggestion, and when they think that the swarm dissipated into thin air, but we see the swarm still attacking in the Firefly's trailers. So I think this part is probably not true. The swarm seems to have still been around even after Glamoth fell. So I think from here on out, everything from here on out, I think is a little questionable, and the IPC may not really know what was going on. What propagates more than mayflies? I don't think mayflies are particularly good at propagating, but anyways. What a weird thought. It just creates the chance of rebellion the moment to realize the Empress is being manipulated. So, that's part of the thing, right? At some point, clearly, the Iron Cavalry, realized the deception. But in the end, we see Firefly and her fellow soldiers, at least those who were left at the end, they're still loyal to Glamoth. They're still fighting. So it seems like the whole lie was just not necessary in the end. Of course, there's a lot to criticize about how Glamoth created the Iron Cavalry. They treated them far worse. This was not a particularly ethical republic, right? Sure, they were driven to the edge of desperation, but they did not have to treat the Iron Cavalry as poorly as they did. So I think it's all maybe it was for like political reasons or whatever. But in the end, yes, I think it was a mistake, and I think it probably did come to bite them in the butt. The swarm moved on for unknown reasons, but it does tell this. Does it tell the swarm is mentioned? So first off, one second. I don't know for sure. I don't really think that the swarm actually did move on for unknown reasons. But the other thing, gentle noob, the swarm doesn't really have intentions, I don't think. Everything we know about the swarm is not intelligent, right? It only knows to reproduce and spread and reproduce more. You don't even necessarily eat things. You just reproduce everywhere. And even their god, Tazrianith, is also very stupid. He has no, particularly it says that he has no insight as an Aeon. So he only knows to reproduce and spread. That's all the swarm understands to do. So if the swarm did leave, I can only imagine that it's because they discovered a better place. Or maybe some other force drove them away. Those are really the only things I can imagine. I don't think there was anything. The swarm doesn't really think, right? Oh, hi, J-Wing. Welcome aboard. Anyways, back to the reading. All the people knew was that the Iron Cavalry gave their all for the non-existent Empire. After decades of bloody battles, the remains of mechas and insect limbs turned into dense debris strewn throughout Glamoth's star system, connecting with each other to form a river of death. When the remnants of the swarm no longer posed a threat, and the leaders of the council rang the bell of peace, informing the citizens that they had dispelled the apocalypse that clouded the heavens and the Republic would be ushered back into the light of day, what arrived was not daylight but the beginning of another sunless night. After that, the civilization known as Glamoth faded away, and the long-awaited peace came to the empty stars. The long river of stardust and debris flows silently along the void. So this is crazy. This basically means that at the end of the war, Glamoth, the solar system, Glamoth's home system, it was filled with so many bug corpses floating around in space that they basically formed a Dyson swarm around the star that completely blotted it out so that the planet of Glamoth could no longer receive sunlight, and the civilization collapsed even after the war was over. So that is crazy. That is like you are fighting a literal planet's worth of bugs at something, or they killed literally at planet's worth of bugs. A big planet even. That's a crazy amount of bugs. And I think it also should be worth noting that, so while we're discussing the swarm, from what we see in the game, the swarm does not reproduce biologically. Like, bugs, they can just make bugs appear out of thin air, and out of nothing. They don't actually need to eat, lay eggs, or reproduce, or whatever. They can just, we literally see bugs in simulated universe, they undergo like mitosis, right? And this is important. We'll talk to this later when we actually get the trailers. The swarm derives its power from like the concept of propagation, of the path of propagation. So they're not just like biological insects. They are literally these like conceptual beings. They're powered by this concept, like literally the concept of reproduction. You can think of them like they are kind of like the concept of reproduction that is embodied in a form. And this is particularly the Star Rail, or Honkai as a setting has had this for a while, where that ideas, literally just concepts, can physically manifest in the physical world. And I think this, we'll talk about this later, but I think this heavily relates to what the swarm actually is. That's something you're still wondering. Do paths still exist when their aeon dies? They do. There are, for example, Akavili, which is the aeon that created the Astral Express and the Trailblaze, we're pretty sure Akavili is dead. And yet the Astral Express still runs, the path of Trailblaze still exists, and the Trailblazer still derives power from it. So yes, a path seems to come into existence when an aeon is born on that path, but just because the aeon dies doesn't mean that the things they created also die with them. Those things persist even beyond the death of an aeon. So another example relevant to the swarm. So when Ron May created their emanator clone of propagation, Tazrionith is dead. But clearly, if there still can exist an emanator of propagation even for a dead path. And so the idea that there might be so the real scary idea is that where Ron may have actually gotten the sample that she clones the emanator from might have been like a real living emanator. So the idea that there is a real emanator of propagation still running around is pretty terrifying. Because, well, for one thing, there's no way there's just one. It's propagation. There's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot more. But also, if you read the item description that for the boss drop you get from defeating the emanator, it says it can shoot beams that blow up stars, which kind of explains, it kind of explains why Glamoth might have lost. It's not just sheer numbers. The bugs get pretty strong. Ina's powers are also being, okay, I don't want to drift too far from Aeons. Star Rail Aeons is a whole nother topic. But it does also seem that it is impossible to really kill an Aeon for good. It seems like they can always potentially be resurrected. Or, the order being absorbed into Shipe can still potentially be resurrected. Even if you read the description for how Tazrionith was destroyed, he was basically broken apart into pieces by Cliffoth, and the pieces were sealed away into amber. So even Tazrionith is potentially not really dead. Because seeing as the Aeons are basically gods of concepts, the concepts, it seems like, cannot really die. There's always the potential of resurrection. Can a new Aeon arise from those who follow that path? That we don't know. That does not seem to have had any precedence before. So it seems that you can have an Aeon arise with a very similar path, and that path can then absorb the old path, as happened with Harmony and Order. But there's no instance that we know of where an Aeon arose of the same path. Could they just make an Aeon? Could the PC just make an Aeon of capitalism? So no one knows how to make an Aeon. So that's the whole thing Ron May is trying to research. Ron May is trying to become an Aeon. She wants, or at least understand how Aeons are born, but nobody knows how. From what we know of the Aeons, it seems to have something to do with the idea that an individual can devote themselves so obsessively to a certain lifestyle or path of living that they ascend into an Aeon. For example, Tazrionith was at some point a normal insect that became so obsessed with reproduction that he became a god of reproduction. The same likewise for Nanook. at some point, Nanook became so obsessed with destroying everything that he became an Aeon of destruction. You think Sunday was trying to do that? No, so Sunday was not actually trying to become an Aeon. So he says quite clearly in the story quest, he's not trying to bring back Ina the Order. It seems in that, so I think, but Sunday was unintentionally driven to the point where he started to bring back Ina. Like, when Robin essentially betrayed him, he was driven to extremes, and that extreme meant starting to process of bringing back Ina, but I don't think he actually intended to do that. Ron May was the giant woman. No, that was Phantilia. That was an emanator of destruction. Ron May. Oh, this is Ron May. Let me show you Ron May. I happen to have Ron. Where is Ron May? Here she is. This is Ron May. I thought Phantilia was deception. Phantilia is a emanator of destruction, but she prefers deception as her tactic for destruction. That's her stories. Okay. Anyways, so now we have a broad overview of Glamoth and what the Iron Cavalry are. So we're going to go back to my other screen. And we're going to actually start looking at the trailers one by one. So I am playing these in OBS, so the controls in OBS are not the best. Okay, so we're going to go through in order. So the first one is the Myriad Celestia trailer. So this is... Also, let me know if the audio is okay for you guys. I think I balanced it to a good point, but let me know.
Command, this is AR-26710. Please respond. I don't think they'll respond.
Okay. So one thing to note in the trailer immediately,
we're the only
you
survivors
see
around.
other types of SAMs.
No matter what, we have to get in touch with the others.
You think it's a bit loud? I can turn it down a bit more. Yeah, so this is the only trailer that gives us evidence for the existence of multiple types of SAMs, which, you know, makes sense. You want to specialize. We seem to have like a ranged variant. Firefly herself, the Type 4 armor seems to be a melee type, and we also seem to have a big melee type.
Hey, you.
I understand. Article 4 of Glamoth's military regulations. Leaving the cockpit is strictly prohibited.
So, what Marla just said, Article 4, leaving the cockpit is strictly forbidden. So it seems that, I assume this only applies to when they're out in the field. It may go further than that though. Maybe like the military expects them to also like sleep and eat in the SAM armors. All up the sounded male. That's the voice change. Also, welcome aboard, Ghost. Yes, the sounded male. Yes, the SAM armors all have voice changers. When they're in the suits, they all sound the male. It's funny because all the SAMs are voiced by Adam Ross. Yeah, the same person, but all the actual, when they have their suits off, the characters all have different voice actors. And it's kind of funny to see Adam Ross's name repeated in the credits over and over again. But anyway, but yes. Also, welcome aboard, Wipeout. So, what was I saying? Article 4, so it may be that the military wants them to eat and sleep inside the suits as well. Why do they have this regulation? Well, we know, for instance, that the people of Glamoth in general, did not know anything about the Iron Cavalry. Remember that line where it said, they didn't know the faces inside the suits, essentially. So, I think probably the reason why the Glamoth military, the high command, didn't want any of the Iron Cavalry to ever leave their suits was the possibility that they might be spotted by a civilian and the secret would come out. What was the secret? Well, probably that they're, creating these genetically engineered super soldiers, who are, many of whom seem to be children, at the very least, very young adults or teenagers. Actually, majority of them seem to be teenagers. So basically, they're creating child soldiers. And they probably just didn't want this information to ever get out to the public, because that would look real bad. So I think that's why probably they were told to never leave their suits. So that they can continue to pretend, that the Iron Cavalry are all made up, heroic volunteers and whatever. Did they even know they were suits? I think they assumed, probably. But we don't know for sure.
Play will be discovered very quickly. Even though we'll be punished.
That can't be helped. How many times is this for you now?
SCP-5000, the best one.
Leaving the cockpit like this.
Article 2 of Glamoth's military regulations. Remain on guard. Article 4. Leaving the cockpit is strictly prohibited. Do you have a death wish?
A Firefly Type 5 personal escort model. Very nice.
You're the odd one out now. You can't connect to command either. Why don't you join us?
Hi, Cherry. Welcome aboard.
No thanks.
Actually,
I'll just
I
pretend
think there's a better
didn't
moment to
see
talk about
anything.
this. I'm gonna continue letting it play out.
What's this?
I picked it up on the battlefield. It seems to be a civilian device. Even though it's no longer working. And the lens is scratched. If you look through the lens, it feels like looking at a whole different world.
Lens? No wonder you wear those weird goggles.
I have other reasons too. If everyone looked the same, how would we tell each other apart?
So that's a really
Your
interesting
hair is-
line, what she just said. So when I was discussing this with Atanashi, he had the question, are this Iron Cavalry all clones, or are they, just genetically modified? We're told they're genetically modified soldiers, but not necessarily that they're clones. Obviously, they cannot all be clones, because some of them are guys, and some of them are girls. So they can't all be clones. But that one person's line saying, I wear the glasses so we can tell each other apart, otherwise we would all look the same. That does suggest that they are in fact clones. Or at least, they're not all clones of one person, but probably several different types of clones. Possibly even, maybe each type of Sam has their own type of clone involved.
Very
Although I
unique.
think
Thank
I
you.
think in
I've been
particular,
throwing it out.
the two girls here,
The length is also
Glasses
proof of your
Girl and
experience.
Firefly, I think they're close enough to
But
each other where
sometimes
you
it
could
gets
think.
in my eyes.
I think you could very easily say that they
I'm
are in
not sure
fact
if I should put
clones
it
of
up.
the same person.
Your turn. Are you really not going to say anything?
Imagine if they use bug DNA to be able to mass produce a small number of genetically modified eggs. So, I don't think
Counts
he
are back
literally
up.
came out of eggs. I don't think
Article
that's
8.
literal.
Surviving knights should immediately
It's
return
more,
to their
I think it's
units.
more of a metaphorical utheka. Even yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so cool.
Looks nice. It really suits you.
hope we can see stars on the next battlefield. Will we see each other again? Probably not. What if the war ends? Then we should be able to find each other.
Oh, this is very touching. Honestly, this is very sad. Okay. So, one thing I want to point out here. This lady, first thing, regarding the clones things, I think if they are clones, she seems to be a different type of clone. You can note her eye color is different from the others. The other three all have the same eyes as Firefly. So he has these like blue and kind of like pinkish. Whereas this
the war ends, then we should be able to find each other.
Of Sam, she has different color of eyes.
What should I say?
And like the upper part of her eyes is much darker. And also like slightly different on the bottom too. So yeah, so does also seem to be, this I think is worth pointing out. Maybe because she's a higher ranking officer. Yeah, I think so. It's probably like she is a more elite, has like a different genetic modification compared to the other types. One other thing I want to point out, she has these cracks on her face. These glowing green cracks with like slightly orange fringes. Firefly we see later, once she becomes a member of the Stellaron Hunters, also develops these cracks on her face. But at least at this point, Firefly doesn't have those cracks yet. And so that's something that I think is important. Now, we'll talk more about the cracks later. As what the cracks are, these really remind me of Honkai infection from Honkai Impact. And so we can see example of that here. This is Himiko from Honkai Impact. At this point, she has very similar, these glowing lines on her face that develop as she uses Honkai power. Is that the entropy loss syndrome? I don't think so, Cole. The cracks, no, okay. Let me talk first about what I think the cracks embody. So, in Honkai infection, the cracks, they correlate with the amount of Honkai in your body. But in the case of Himiko, here they're representing how much power she's drawing upon in terms of the Honkai. So Himiko is what is called, in Honkai Impact, is called a Valkyrie. And I think there are a lot of parallels between the Iron Cavalry and the Valkyries. Valkyries are also genetically modified super soldiers. They are modified with stigma, or sometimes also the DNA they're basically given DNA from the Honkai, which is what they're fighting. So essentially, as Tommy has mentioned before, they use the Honkai to defeat the Honkai. And when they draw upon Honkai is extremely dangerous, it's corrosive. Becoming a Valkyrie inherently shortens your lifespan. So if you are going to undergo this process to get the powers so that you can fight Honkai Beast, you will also shorten your lifespan. And in Himiko's case here, she's basically at the end of her natural life already at this battle. So you think they're using the swarm DNA for yes. So I think we know miHoYo likes to reuse the same concepts over and over again. And I think the Iron Cavalry are basically Glamoth's version of Valkyries. They took the power from the swarm and they injected it into these clones and used that to give them the power to fight the swarm. And so these green lines, therefore, I think represent the degree to which these soldiers are able to call upon the power in their blood from the Honkai infection, or not Honkai, but from the swarm. And we'll get into this in the next trailer as well. What powers do the swarm have other than mass production? They have all sorts of powers. We'll get into that. But so, actually, no, while we're here, let me bring up this little bit about the swarm. Hopefully I have one of these items sitting around. It would suck if I had to go fight that boss just to get one to show you. Where are the boss drops? Oh, here they are. Here we are. Wait, is this thing? No, this is not it. I don't think. No, this is it. Okay, I'm good. Okay, this is not the, sorry. I didn't plan to go into this, so I didn't have it ready. Okay, so basically, for example, Swarm Kings, I'm trying to bring, I can find the source for this later, but basically what I'm trying to say, Swarm Kings, the fire beams from their mouths that blow up stars, and then you can nest in the resulting black holes. And so they turn the black hole into an egg for themselves. So the propagation gives you a lot of powers. It gives you all sorts of powers that you aren't affiliated with reproduction at all. Like all the paths, really. It's a very flexible kind of thing. Pull it up. Where is it? I thought it was from this item, but... Echo of War Seclusion. Was there like a... Okay. Maybe there was like a... International data bank? Enemy creatures. Oh, maybe it was here. The Swarm. Dark Crusher Swarm King. Oh yeah, here it is. It can collect in its mouth parts the death ray that fragmented celestial bodies and make shattered stars incubators for procreating offspring. It was once one of the nightmares across multiple wars during the swarm disaster. Yeah, and one of its attacks is called, basically, like a star ovum or something. Basically saying it's created, it turned the heart of a star into an egg. And now it's throwing it at you. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Back to the trailers. I'm gonna let this one finish out.
I wish us all a triumphant return.
It's a death beam for nest making. Yeah. Like, everything the swarm does is seems to be associated with propagation, as one you would expect, but like paths give you all sorts of powers. Like just in Wednesday's story quest, Sparkle was able to use the Path of Elation to prevent a bomb from being able to be diffused. So like, yeah, Elation is basically about trolling. So it's like, if you can, paths can do basically whatever. It's magic. You don't gotta explain it. Okay, we're gonna play the next one. So this is the main one. This is the one that trailer that I want to focus on.
Command,
For this
Firefly.
batch. or not dispatch, but
Reinforcing the swarm.
the stream. This is Embers of Glamoth. Did Jade say Firefly walks the path of find? No. I don't think so. Firefly, as far as we know, doesn't walk any particular path, as far as I know. But yeah, anyways.
Requesting reinforcements. I repeat, requesting reinforcements.
So, something I want to point out here. For the rest of this trailer, we only see the melee type SAMs, the same type as Firefly, but you can you can see this like flak going on in the background, which the melee type SAMs don't have. So, there do seem to be other SAMs involved, or types of SAMs involved off screen. We just aren't seeing them here. But at the very least, there seems to be some range types of SAM elsewhere. Possibly the same type as that glasses girl. But who knows? Yeah, so Firefly, we know, for instance, in the last trailer, the different types of SAMs in that one, they were all from different units, and so they had to separate after the battle. So presumably, each unit of SAM is comprised mainly of one type of mech, and they're specialized in that way.
On your feet. The target's straight ahead. Keep pushing forward.
Affirmative!
So, I don't know if this actually has much meaning, but I think it's worth noting that when we're close up, the explosions they're making by punching the bugs is really small, and when we zoom out, suddenly the explosions are very, very big. Like, you can't even see them relative to the size of the explosions. I don't know if that's just like a camera trick. Like, maybe this is how big the explosions are always supposed to be, but just when we're close in, they're just not showing us, because then we wouldn't be able to see anything. It's weird how she's depicted like she's controlling it in the well, they do call it a cockpit. And so I think it's worth noting, when you actually, like, the proportions of the mech SAM are very different from the proportions of Firefly or like the people inside the mechs. There might, for all we know, there's like dimensional magic going on. Like, there's actually like a portable space inside the mech suit when they put it on. So, yeah, it's weird. Okay, so this, when this trailer first dropped, there was a lot of question about what this bug was. Some people thought this was a true sting, the kind that would fight as a boss in the simulated universe. When Firefly dropped, though, her character story identifies this as a silver sting, is the name of this bug. It's also known as the Swarm Queen. So yeah, so that's what this is. It's called a silver sting, and it apparently leads the silver swarm. Yeah, that's a horrifying part. Yeah. Okay. So this part is interesting. When we see the bugs, so the small bugs, the way they attack is the run in and the explode. But the way they do these don't seem to be dealing like, and leaving any physical damage upon the Iron Cavalry. We'll see more evidence of this later to support this. I want to keep this in mind when we're talking about how the swarm derives its power from these concepts. And I think this trailer demonstrates that they're also not really attacking physically. When the bugs come up to you and explode, it's not the force of the explosion that's killing you. It's like some path-related power that's managing to kill you without actually causing physical harm off. One did knock off this. Again, I'll expand upon this later. Another thing to discuss here, because we saw in the last trailer, or rather, we know the Sands can fly, and we saw in the last trailer, all of them can fly. Yet here, they're running. They're running up instead of just flying. Why is that the case? So there's a few reasons this could be. I think one of the most obvious ones. So we know this trailer takes place after the fall of Glamoth. So maybe they're just out of fuel, and they want to conserve what little energy or fuel that they have, because Glamoth has fallen at this point. So logistics are probably have all gone to hell. They can't getting supplied. They're probably all starving to death, and we'll see later. Notice in the last trailer, when they left their suit, they all still had their skin suits, like that suits that on. In this trailer, they're all naked. Like even when they ditch the suits, they're all naked. So they seem to be like so bad for logistics that they no longer can afford clothes. That's how bad things have gotten for them. Or actually, I just said they're not all of them are naked. Some of them have like these cloth rags they're using to cover themselves. So it's not just like they're naked, but some of them are also dressed in rags. So I think it's more that they're in a really bad spot. Yes, I can see. They're not really seem to be doing much damage to the armor, even though they're killing him. Like, he knocked out that one lady's helmet.
What's this? Activated when you
But
see
we
this.
also, but another reason for that, so we seem to be seeing later on that whenever a member of the Iron Cavalry, whenever they lose consciousness, their armor, like, disappears or falls off. And so, another way to interpret that particular one, maybe, like, they knocked her unconscious, and as a result, the armor was able to fall off, rather than the force of the explosion blowing them off. Oh, I almost forgot. Another thing to think about, though, with why they're running instead of flying, we can see most of the swarm appears to be in the air, and as previously mentioned, the swarm is not really intelligent. So they're not really coordinating their attacks. The bugs are just each individually responding to what they see in their general vicinity. There's not like a single chief bug in command that's directing them to attack and prioritize certain targets. So I think probably they're just running on the ground because it helps them avoid most of the swarm, which is in the air, and flying would attract a lot more bugs to them, which you can't really afford at this point. So, relating back to my previous point, how the explosions don't seem to cause any damage to the armor. Here, obviously, they have no trouble depicting damage to the armor through this. This is not a mysterious bug explosion. This big bug just impaled him. But another thing to note is that this green stuff, you could potentially dismiss it as like being some kind of fluid from the suit. I think it's their blood. I think this is the the Iron Firefly bleeds green, like, a non-human. And this, I think this may be related to, what her bug DNA in her. The caveat against this theory is the swarm is not really generally depicted as being green in color, but when you see the green cracks that seem to be like glowing from underneath, it would make sense if their blood is also green, and that's like the source of the green glow when you see the cracks on them. And also, of course, when Firefly manifests her power, it also comes out green. So I think green blood makes sense. And also, but regarding for why it's not the color of the swarm itself, we've seen that different individuals in the swarm can have different colors. Not all of them are just kind of reddish color. For example, in Firefly's character story, it mentions that the silver swarm is, supposed to be silver in color. In this trailer, they're kind of red. But at least that suggests, that gives the idea that there might be other colored swarms out there. Also, the Emanator, the Swarm King, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name because what an awful name to try to pronounce. He's blue. So at the very least, so it may be that the bug that the Republic of Glamoth extracted the DNA from to create the Iron Cavalry was green. That one just happened to be green.
Commencing.
By the way, I spent a lot of time trying to scale the big bug
Her Majesty!
in the shot. It's really, I don't think you could definitively scale it in any way. But the best I can figure, I think it's around like 50 meters in length. So like around the size of the original Godzilla, which seems reasonable to me. It's, it looks approximately the size of a small Godzilla. I think that's reasonable. Artie, are you over there? Oh, I'm trying to figure out how big the bug is. Yes, just how big, because figuring out how big the bug is important for later on. You can't hear, yeah, okay. I should not have tried to speak there, but you guys know what I was talking about now. Okay. This is a heckin' big explosion. The reason I was trying to figure out the size of the bug was because I wanted to figure out how big this explosion was. Because if you know how big a fireball is, you can roughly estimate how much energy went into it. It's orbital laser mount. But then I realized, we go back, go like to the very first frame. I think it's a tungsten, no, it's some kind of energy weapon. It might even be like it's whatever it is, it's based on the same tech as the SAM suits, because it's got that like greenish blue color. Okay. We can't even see the swarm in this shot. Like, this is like as close to the first frame of the explosion as I can get. You can't even see the swarm here. So the entire swarm, that huge swarm, like covering the sky, like all surrounding the SAM soldiers on every single side, it seems to entirely fit inside this little thing. Are rail cannons energy weapons or advanced? Rail cannons are ballistics. Like, there's no question there. Rail guns are ballistics. They just get treated as energy weapons in video games because reasons. You can use period and comma and can I? I do not think that's working. That is not working, Cass. I am playing this in OBS. I'm not playing this. You might be thinking of some other video player. Oh, that makes a lot more sense. You can have the throne thing. No, there's definitely some kind of beam. Anyways, that freak out was... Oh, Wraith. Did you have to freak out over a big bug? Oh, YouTube. I'm not playing this on YouTube. I downloaded this. But that's good to know for YouTube. Anyways, I was saying... Also, I want you to know, there are mountains in the background here. This will be relevant later. So here we see what I was talking about earlier, how when they fall unconscious, their armor seems to disappear. So, and here he has his armor, and then he's still in the explosion, but his armor just disappears, and also he's naked. And also here, this is Firefly. She goes naked. She loses consciousness due to the explosion, and is naked. Sitting in, probably at least a gigaton of TNT equivalent kind of explosion. Are we sure the armor didn't just disintegrate? Yes, we are. We are sure, Cole. If you keep watching the trailer, you'll see why. Oh, you saw a real bug. Interesting. How'd you deal with this scorpion, Wraith? But the armor just exaggerated. We're just see how durable. Oh, their bodies are very durable. I'm about to bring that up. But as you can see, Firefly is naked and just eating the nuclear fire with her skin, and she's fine. Like, she's uninjured after all of that, even. If you pause and look around, you can see even there's corpses of other Iron Cavalry. All of them don't have any armor on. So, which is why I think whenever an Iron Cavalry loses consciousness, their armor just disappears, or like retracts. But their bodies are all fine. Like, none of them appear to be injured. So it's hard to tell because they're drawn very darkly. Some of them appear to be half buried. But, like, they're not, like, in pieces, bone to lips. Like, even a dead Iron Cavalry, their body is just inherently so durable that they're fine in a gigaton nuclear explosion. Technically not a bug. Okay, cool. Technically, scorpions are not an insect. Bugs is a more general term than insect. Spiders and scorpions are bugs. Bug has no formal definition. Bug is just creepy crawly. I hate it when people say technically not a bug, because bug has no formal definition. What they're thinking of is insects. Yeah, and so you can see Firefly's naked. This lady that comes up, she's like dressed in has like a rag draped over herself. Some of the other, which I think could potentially, like, maybe it's a cape from a Sam, I think. Maybe. But I don't know what it is. It's evidently like a very strong cloth, whatever it is. I guess the only cloth you could find that could survive being with them in a Sam suit. Like, what? You'll see, Cole. Also, there's no they. I think at this point, Firefly is the only survivor.
Till we die.
Okay, and here you see the Utheka. These are the clone tanks used for growing them up. And as you can see here, these seem to all be identical. at least while they're in this stage.
Why do we live?
But by the time they're out, so these are the suits that they wear normally. The ones that we saw in the other trailer. And at this point, so at some point, like when they're out of the tubes, they apparently have differentiated enough that some of them have long hair, some of them short. They all seem to be the same height though. And I think some of them, like that, some of them are able to grow older and younger depending on how long these survive on the battlefield maybe.
But
Okay, so here we see some red splotches on the ground that could be blood. And so this would be counter evidence for my theory that the green stuff is their blood. But you can't really, it's not really associated with a body in particular, at least one that I can tell. So it could also be like bug juice. It doesn't necessarily have to be Iron Cavalry blood. But I was, in full transparency, I will also point out the evidence that does not support my theory. Unlike some other, certain other lore content creators.
no longer exists.
Yeah, this is how we know Glamoth has already ceased to exist at this point.
I dreamed of a scorched earth. A new shoot sprouted from the earth. It bloomed in the morning sun and whispered to me.
So here we see, again, this is when the cracks first appear on her face. So this is the first time Firefly is drawing out like her full power. So in Honkai Impact, the Valkyries have the process, we call it awakening. So sometimes a Valkyrie can awaken, or I guess strictly speaking, this is more like the Mantis soldiers, which I'm not going to get into that right now, but there's this process called awakening in Honkai Impact, whereas these genetically modified super soldiers can, when under extreme duress, can tap into their full power. Oh, also, cool. The plant is metaphorical. The plant is not physically real. It's not. This is not literally there. I know Wraith also had a similar question, had that same question at some point. The plant is not real. But what is real is that Firefly is awakening her true power here. As a result, you see the green cracks appear on her face the first time. But the plant is definitely symbolic.
Like fireflies to a flame.
Yeah, it is a metaphor. Okay, I also want to point out, you know how I was mentioning that there were mountains in the background in the explosion, side of the explosion? There are no mountains in the background anymore. We can also go back to this shot of them, standing with the blossom tree. There are no mountains in the background anymore. That beam weapon, whatever it was, that explosion was so big, it leveled the mountains surrounding, tens of kilometers away. That's a really, really big explosion. That's like, at very least, billions of tons, if not trillions of tons of TNT equivalent. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of boom to literally level mountains, especially when you're detonating the bomb many kilometers or miles away. Yeah, let me stop. So this really gives, I'm bringing this up because it gives a perspective of just how durable, just how tough the normal Sans are. Even their naked bodies are so durable. They are literally tougher than mountains here. This is actually insane. And then what's really mind-blowing here, the implications. The Glamoth Empire, so they could mass produce these guys that are tougher than mountains, and these still lost to the Swarm. This is a horrifying universe to live in. This is an absolutely horrifying universe to live in. You could be protected by an entire army of Superman and still lose to bugs, to just bugs that are nowhere near as strong as they used to be, even. Anyways, okay. Yeah, honest to God, this trailer made me just... Star Rail is a Star Rail makes Warhammer 40k seem like a nice vacation home at this point. Oh yeah, speaking of power scaling, that's probably a video. Yeah, Firefly just blows up the planet. It's like when I say they're a mecha Superman, not kidding. She's basically mecha Superman. She can just blow up the planet. So yeah. So one thing to mention. So obviously, not every Sam is at this level of power, but so Firefly clearly could not do this like 5 seconds ago. She only figured out how to be able to do this now. But this is also a mode. Clearly, the suit has a mode for this. So this is a intended power for the Sams to have. Like, they were designed with this mode, this awakened mode in mind. And probably Firefly is not the first to have awakened this, because if we think of the green cracks on her skin as being a sign of her being awakened, then that personal escort model from the previous trailer seems to also have been an awakened soldier, and potentially also has this level of power. So and that may be why she gets to be, a personal escort model. When she's awakened, she is this elite soldier, proven herself to be this elite soldier, far more powerful than a normal Sam. And so she got reassigned to be for personal escort, probably protecting some big VIPs. Yes, so Sams of this level of power are probably rare to Glamoth, but not unheard of. Audire, the tagline is "There is only war." That's a tagline, yes, Cass, but I think that's not actually true. Plenty of people there are trillions of people in the 40k universe who are just living normal lives on planets far away from the front lines. Just like in the Star Rail universe. I think the scope of the horrors of that's a whole other discussion. We're getting a little off topic here. Like whether Star Rail is a worse universe to live in than Warhammer 40k. Keep it. And then also, here, yeah, obviously, she's floating naked in space. Firefly, she doesn't need to breathe, clearly. Clearly the Sams don't need to breathe. Which is, again, neither does the Swarm. The bugs can also just fly in space. So that's probably where she gets that power. Her bug modifications. Okay. I think that's mostly everything I wanted to say about that trailer. So yeah. Implication, the power scaling you get from this is pretty damn crazy. Why does Kafka sound so hoarse there? She always sounds that hoarse, Tommy. That's just how she sounds in English. Firefly with over 360% break effect here. My Firefly, when all the buffs from supports are applied and she's in her ult, she has like 450 break effect during her ult peak. It's pretty crazy. You do not remember her sounding like a smoker in game? I mean, she might be a little hoarser than usual, but I think that's about it. That's about how normally she sounds. Anyways, there is one more trailer. My Firefly with just 140. If that's her base, like, when I'm looking at my Firefly just in the character, not in battle, like, she only gets, like, 230 or something, 220 or something. I think this is the final one. Oh, hello, Maria. Welcome aboard. Yes, we are. Unfortunately, you missed the meat of the discussion today. We were going over the Firefly trailers. There is still one more trailer for me to go over here. This is the third one. This is the third one that was released just like a few days ago. So before we begin, I have to make a confession. My main rant here on this trailer is going to be against this one Twitter post that I saw being spread around that got like 13,000 likes. That's trying to say that everything you see here is because of Sparkle. I think that theory is stupid, and I'm going to go over why this is not Sparkle and cannot be Sparkle extensively. Love seeing Audire have a beef with Twitter. I have lots of beef with Twitter. There's not a day goes by where I don't see something on Twitter that was like, this is so stupid. I brought up the idea of just reacts to Twitter streams, but people shot that down. I don't think people want to see that. Look, can I turn it down first? Oh, is it still too loud? I've already turned it down a lot, actually. It's already up. Turn it down 10 decibels. Let me turn it out another 5.
Busting reinforcements. Forward.
Okay, so obviously, these first lines, this is a callback to the trailer we just watched. This is Firefly is having a little PTSD in going back to her final battle against the Swarm.
Forward. Reinforcements.
However, the subsequent lines, these reinforcement calls are happening for real. This isn't just her PTSD. And so the trailer opens up. We see a bunch of IPC goons and robots. So we see the robots here. We see these, they're the spears that the IPC soldiers use. So this is them calling for reinforcements.
Strike unit will engage target. We're under fire. Darn it! Is the experimental weapon ready yet? Darn it!
Okay, the experimental weapon, that's what's going to be coming out in a second here. So this is it. This is clearly like an IPC robot. So the theory that this is Sparkle is really stupid. Well, first off, we can see this is clearly an IPC robot. It has like this particular pattern on its horn here. This is the same pattern that we see on their other IPC robots. It has all the hallmarks of the design of IPC. Second, and first of all, the other IPC soldiers wouldn't be calling a reinforcement from Sparkle. They also wouldn't be calling her an experimental weapon. And thirdly, Sparkle has never shown the ability to turn into a mech. She can disguise herself as other people, but she doesn't get powers from them. Sparkle does not Sparkle cannot fire lasers or rockets or fly around. Like, she can disguise herself. That does not mean she can turn into a fully functioning mech. I hate that someone, I don't hate that someone was stupid enough to guess this. I hate that, tens of thousands of people saw that and didn't go, that is so stupid. Didn't Sparkle slow down, stop time she seemed to have done that a little bit. It may have also, I think probably, she didn't actually stop time. She like projected an illusion into the Trailblazer's mind that is much more of I don't think she has time manipulation powers. She has like illusion powers. But this mech is not an illusion. It is very real. Right? People think Sparkle is the robot. That's what that tweet was proposing. That tweet was proposing that Sparkle is disguised as the robot here. It is just so outlandish.
Unfortunately, I was also born a weapon. To be destroyed.
Sparkle has some engineering ability. Like, she can make the bombs. She can, during one of her character quests, like, she created all this, like detective games for you with the constructs around Penacony. But, like, that doesn't mean she can build this mech or become this mech or pilot this mech. Reverse Flash, God of Strongest Hater. Oh yeah, Reverse Flash, Strongest Hater. Is that even real bombs on? Yeah, I mean, it turned out to be fireworks. I mean, she probably could build a real bomb, but it turned out to be just fireworks. Oh yeah. The other thing. That Theory also proposed that the Black Sam here is Sparkle talking to Firefly.
Iron Cavalry.
And now,
Celeron. Hunter.
then who will you
But that's also really stupid, which we'll discuss in a second. Okay, so actually, because first off, if you recall, during the original Penacony story quest, I know it's been a while, but when Sparkle first disguised as Sampo meets you and Firefly together, she calls her March 7th. Sparkle does not know who Firefly is. Sparkle has no clue Firefly even exists. She has no clue who this girl is. Sparkle would not be able to just ask all these questions, like go into Firefly's mind. She has no reason to do all this. She doesn't know Firefly exists. That's the biggest thing. Sparkle does not know Firefly exists. And she doesn't know who Firefly is. There's no reason she would go to all this effort just to troll Firefly. But yes, the Black Sam is Firefly grappling with her PTSD. There's another idea. It may also be this actual Sam suit. Like, maybe the Sam suit is sentient, kind of. It has its own consciousness in a way, possibly, and it's questioning her here. But this is clearly this emblematic of Firefly grappling with her inner trauma here.
will you be in the future?
So this part is interesting. You can see, so this probably represents like them doing the injections or genetic modifications of her. This is them injecting injecting Firefly with bug juice here.
Don't know.
And here we see that the lines also going into her are also, sometimes they're green, sometimes they're red, and I don't really know what to make of that.
Don't know.
To burn to ashes is the honor of Glamoth's Iron Cavalry. Like destiny, it
Oh, also, another thing that they brought up.
ashes is the
Again, I know I'm just beefing with a tweet that probably none of you guys have read here. Something else they said, something else that tweet said is that this is Firefly remembering the things she did during night from like a previous samsara or whatever, like a previous cycle of the universe. That's clearly not what this is.
Of Glamoth's iron cavalry. Like
This is,
destiny.
we'll see later. When this, there's things in this trailer that indicate when this took place. This is happening after those events. She's not remembering them from a different cycle of the universe. She's remembering them from like last week. We said that burger is what kind of thinking is that? Oh, what? Hi, welcome aboard, Wipeout. So, those of you who are not like deep into the Star Rail lore, like, there is this ongoing theory that the entire Star Rail universe is like operates in samsaras or like reincarnation cycles, which may be true. I think there is some merit to that, but also Firefly is not recalling memories from her past life here. She's recalling memories from like a few days ago.
It cannot be defied.
But for that, I still have the right to choose.
So actually, I just seeing this now, seeing how like the red lines turn green as soon as Firefly touches them. I'm wondering, think now there's like, when the injector with the red stuff, that represents like the original swarm material, which as we know the swarm is generally red, but maybe then becomes green, and that is like symbolic of how it's being, that the swarm juice is being taken up and transformed by her humanity, maybe something like that. And now it's her power and no longer the swarm.
I'm like a firefly to a flame. And life begets.
So wait, does Sam want to die, or perhaps Santa is upset it didn't die in the blaze of glory with all the other Sams? So, I think okay, if Sam is conscious, it is probably programmed to want to die. So, if we go into, actually, hang on, let me pull up this trailer on YouTube, because this trailer on YouTube has a line in the description. Right? Never mind. It was not this one. The other one. Article 22 of Glamoth's military regulations. Knights must give all they have to Her Majesty the Queen, including their lives. So, we are told that it's not robotic survivor's guilt. It is very much intentional. So we are told quite explicitly, the Iron Cavalry were designed expressly to be weapons. Firefly has this condition called entropy loss syndrome, which, as Jade explains, is a built-in genetic defect that will cause her to die once she reaches a certain age. The Republic of Glamoth, the people who designed the Iron Cavalry, wanted them to be weapons exclusively. They did not want them to ever have to live lives. Even if the war ended, they did not want to ever risk them potentially integrating into the civilian population. So this is could either be, Firefly's guilt over like, this is her purpose, what she was literally created for, or it could also be the Sam armor, like it's programming kicking in, but basically acknowledging they are meant to die. Like this is what they were created for. They are meant to live very short lives where they burn very brightly and then die, and not dying, trying to live beyond your purpose is in fact like a kind of sin. At least in terms, at least how their creators would see it. The Dark Sam is Firefly's original, yeah, that definitely could be. Okay, so right now we're gonna come up, I don't know if I can actually catch it, but so this part coming up here is why that tweet thinks the mech is Sparkle. I'm gonna play it here. And did any of you catch that? No? Of course you didn't. Let's go through it very slowly. So if you go through this really frame by frame, I don't know if I can do this slow enough actually. Okay, there is a Sparkle plushie in this shot. If you go through it really slowly, frame by frame, there is a Sparkle plushie in this shot. And that tweet basically took this and went, oh, Sparkle must be behind everything in here. Sparkle must be the mech. Sparkle disguised as herself as a mech and went around fighting Firefly, flying, shooting rockets and lasers at her and being an IPC goon. But no, this is just an Easter egg. I'm like 99.99% sure this is just an Easter egg. It's so fast, nobody would ever see this normally. Because it's like, we're talking about how if you watch in slow-mo, the old Disney anime, there'd be curse words appearing in the background, that'd be way too fast to see. It's not, there's nothing deep going on. It's just a funny little Easter egg that the animators left in. She literally hid 1,000 of them all over Penacony. So, yes, she did. Yes, she did, Cole. But I don't think that this plushie is supposed to be canonically there. And this is another reason why it can't be Sparkle. Because you see this shot here. The thing in the background is the black hole from Dreamflux Reef, which means that this locates where this is happening in space, but also time. So this means that this trailer must be taking place sometime after Firefly made it to Dreamflux Reef, which means, sometime when she got stabbed by Sleepy. It happened sometime after that. And second, the fact that the IPC is also here in Dreamflux Reef means that this must be happening also sometime after Aventurine got black holed by Acheron. So I don't know what the IPC or how or why Aventurine managed to get all these robots into all these IPC goons into Dreamflux Reef. But my speculation is that this is or at least part of what Firefly was doing when she left us during the final part of the Penacony story quest. Because as far as I can tell, that seems to be the only time where this trailer could possibly be taking place. That's the only time where Firefly was separated from us after Aventurine, and she could have been doing this while after that part of the story quest. Yes. But also, another reason why it can't be Sparkle. Sparkle has never been to Dreamflux Reef. Sparkle probably doesn't know Dreamflux Reef exists. At this point in time, Sparkle is busy being disguised as Robin and giving out buttons to people in the normal dream. So she couldn't be here, and she couldn't be leaving the plushies there, which is another reason why I think the plushies, they're just an Easter egg. There's nothing deeper to it. The animators had this asset from the upcoming story quest, and they decided to use it. Just sneak it in there. In a scene that's way too fast to actually see.
Until I die.
Anyways, that's all I had to. It's pretty much all I had to say for this one. It's mostly just ranting about that one Twitter post. I know, obviously, my platform is much smaller than anything that got tens of thousands of views and likes, but on Twitter. But at least if I can help correct the false impressions of even a few people, I consider my mission to be accomplished here today. With regards to that particular one. Yeah, the Pizza Planet delivery truck being in every Pixar movie for yeah, it's an Easter egg. It's just a little silly thing. Anyways. Okay, so there's a little bit more. We're done with the trailers, but the only link left to discuss, I think, is Firefly's character quest? Or character story from her actual profile. And thankfully, Star Rail does not have this friendship system, which locks her story behind a bunch of grinding to do, so we can actually just read it all here. If you want to eat the Sparkle Fumo, it would probably do terrible things to you. I would not recommend it. But anyways, also, with regards to the whole Black Sam thing, I could do probably a whole nother stream just talking about the story of Penacony from like a how do I put it? A literary analysis standpoint. Like the themes, Firefly, Penacony as a whole, but as particularly exemplified by Firefly and Acheron, it's the story, the theme is about facing the inevitability of death and how to live one's life in a productive way, even when facing inevitable death. So Firefly and Acheron represent ways of facing death, whereas Penacony as a whole, and particularly Sunday, represent trying to run away from that. And you do terrible things to it. Bonk. No. We don't use flumos like that. That's terrible. We do not do that with our plushies. Anyways, but from a literary analysis standpoint, that's what that's what all the Penacony arc is all about. But we are still, we're still focusing on more like superficial lore here. Not superficial, but like just lore, as opposed to themes and meanings. That's a cool theme, one you don't know if you picked up on at all. Okay, so I'll devote a little more time to it. So, actually, if you just read Acheron's speech at the end of Wednesday's stream, her final speech in the book goodbye, she spells out the themes there as explicitly as you could possibly ask for. Because, like, Acheron faces Ix, Oblivion, the god of oblivion, nihility, and we know from her flashbacks all humans in the Honkai universe, when they die, there is no afterlife. Everyone goes to Ix. And after death is simply oblivion. And Acheron is all about finding ways to live. She talks a lot about how to live your life, even in the face of IX. And Firefly, similarly, she has to deal with this entropy loss. Like, her death it's not necessarily imminent, but it's coming up a lot sooner than most people. And she's trying to find ways to live. But a lot of her lines talk about, even if she dies, how to live her life so that she can die with no regrets. One of the lines that we've heard a lot today, life begets death. That's basically like her tagline as a character. And also, just one more thing I'd like to point out. Oh, you can't really see here. Never mind. Oh, somebody should. But the thing I was hoping to show you, you can probably Google it, but Firefly's final Eidolon, the E6 Eidolon, so most of the other Eidolons in Honkai Star just depicts like the character naked. And Firefly's, the bottom half of her body is actually disappearing. And so her E6 Eidolon shows her actually like disappearing from entropy loss syndrome. Anyways, back to what we were doing. Even if you know the possibility, the middle of the journey is the most important part of it. Most of the, well, she's still naked in it, but she also like disintegrating in the process. So I don't know for sure that Firefly is going to die, but I think there's a strong chance that she is going to die in the story at some point in the future. But he may also subvert expectations, and she will actually find a way to actually live here. Oh yeah, here's his. She experienced accelerated growth, but a tragically shortened lifespan. She joined the Stellar Hunters in a quest for a chance at life, seeking to defy her fated demise. Nice. So her story. Character details. We just read that. Within the transparent incubation pod, she lay submerged in frigid artificial amniotic fluid enclosed in a pristine white egg. As the container trembled, she floated and instinctively reached the cold and soft edges. She presses against the pod's walls tightly, curled up in a corner as if that would make her body feel warmer. She heard something heavy fall, and the clamor of metal clashing. Intermittent haste-filled footsteps resounded, and the incubator started to shake. Warriors, it is time to awaken. For Her Majesty! A pair of mechanical hands scooped her up as blinding light rent the world asunder. She forgot to weep. Feel glory in your birth. For Her Majesty. He opened her eyes, yet failed to find the speaker. She rose up and advanced through heavy curtains, venturing deeper into the palace. Accept your honor and your destiny. For Her Majesty. The cadence of footsteps in unison reverted through the desolate palace. She traversed the unattended vast garden, navigating through colossal insectoid carcasses and numerous incubators, until finally she arrived at the resplendent council chamber, where a woman with a blurry face was seated upon the throne, her hands hanging wearily. So this is, again, interesting to note, as support for the theory that Firefly, has bug DNA. The colossal insectoid carcasses. So basically, you have these insectoid carcasses sitting around in the lab where she's created, probably because they're harvesting their material to use in creating the Iron Cavalry. Don't look up. Someone approached her, whispering softly. The person bore an identification tab. AR 26702. Wait, is that why the Republic built up the lie of an empire? Well, we don't know. I don't know for sure, Cole, but as previously mentioned, I think the most likely reason why they did that is to, instill greater loyalty in the soldiers. Because bugs often form matriarchal societies. I don't think that's it, necessarily. Anyways, come closer, my child. It could be, but I don't know that's necessary. I don't think there's a lot of evidence to do that. A distant voice emanated from the depths of her mind, casting inexplicable frenzy upon her consciousness. She obediently approached the Empress and knelt down, kissing her fingers. So it may be the case, Cole, that it has to do with the telepathy. Maybe the Empress has this bug queen DNA in her, and so the soldiers are to reinforce the telepathic link between them and her, to make them loyal to her, that created the lie of empire. So I think that's definitely a possibility. But it goes back to what I said, it helps them to instill loyalty. The Empress's touch felt as icy and unyielding as solid ice, momentarily stirring a flicker of perplexity amidst her frenzy. Ignite yourself to the last moment for the future of Glamoth, or your Majesty. Again, going back to what I said, the Iron Cavalry, you are created to die, preferably in glorious battle. And that is the first instruction that Firefly gets from her Empress. As time passed, she had grown accustomed to the battlefield. She witnessed her comrades fall before her eyes, yet remained resolute, pressing forward. She knew that one day she too would meet her end on the battlefield, paving the way for those who would follow unblinkingly. Thus, moments of rest held immense value for her. She lifted her gaze towards the sea of stars hanging high above, its radiance cascading upon her. Tranquility pervaded everything under the starry sky. Despite the looming threat of entropy loss, she yearned to shed her battle armor and catch a glimpse of the world's true nature. So I think this is an interesting line. It kind of suggests that maybe the SAM armor helps to halt entropy loss syndrome. And that's another reason why maybe that they are told to never leave the armor. Just a possibility. But this there's other ways to interpret this, but I think it's just a possibility. The voices from memory gradually resurface. So this line, I'm not going to read it out loud because it's from the trailer that we just watched. Glamoth Military Regulation 8. Surviving Knight should actively return to base. Welcome back, everyone. AR-53935. He is a different type. Welcome back, everyone. So, yeah, 4077. So this is interesting because this also brings up the existence of non-combat SAMs. 4077, she knew he never goes to the battlefield, always staying in the rear. So, yeah, so there's also logistics type SAMs for some reason. So this, but it's not that unusual. So in Honkai Impact, they're also like non-combat Valkyries. They're like support Valkyries that handle logistics in the back. Possibly a reason for them to do it this way is so the SAMs do as little interacting with normal humans as possible. So like their logistics, people who do the logistics are also other SAMs. She did also say the armor relates to, oh yeah, she did say that. So yeah, so that would support that theory. In which case, so that's actually, so yeah, okay, that actually explains something else I brought up, which is because Firefly mentions that she's never been able to do a mission as Firefly before instead of Sam, and that's because Penacony, she's in a dream. So this is the only time she can, this is the only time she can leave the armor without entropy loss. Okay, no, that actually makes perfect sense. If that's the case, then next time we see Sam, she should not be ever leaving the armor when we see her in the real world. Yeah, no, I should have thought of that way earlier. It's been a while. Again, it's been a while since we played that story quest. It's been a few months. From the depths of the starry expanse, the immense insects ascended. Its abrupt invasion interrupted their brief respite. Reactivating her armor, she was ready to charge into the fray. However, the offense exhibited unprecedented ferocity. No, this is not an ordinary attack. It's the swarm. The swarm. The voices in her comms trembled as more and more of the Iron Cavalry soared into the sky like sparkling fire, only to be swallowed by the encroaching darkness as soon as de-ignited. Hold the line, push forward. In her line of sight, countless numbers of the Iron Cavalry fell. Are there any of them that have spoken to her? It was a realization that struck her for the first time. So, each person is unique? Finally, an opening was created within the swarm, and from it emerged the Swarm Mother, advancing slowly. Like a streak of light, she skillfully navigated through the dense swarm, racing alongside her fellow Iron Cavalry comrades towards the mouthpiece of the towering Silver Sting. Just as the Swarm Mother was about to devour her, she closed her eyes, detonating a bomb with enough firepower to obliterate an entire planet. Okay, so this is where we run into a problem. This is clearly describing the bat hole that we see in the second trailer, the animated short. But the events described therein are not the same. My guess is probably they wrote this way earlier, or whenever they wrote this and whenever they did the animated short, those two groups of people did not communicate. And at some point, some things were changed. Probably the animated short people decided to change some things from the original concept, and that never got updated in this part of the story. What if this is a battle from when Glamoth thought they were winning? We'll get to that call in the next one. A blinding light erupted, engulfing the Swarm Mother, plunging everything into silence. Like a kite severed from its string, she was propelled by the tremendous impact descending towards the ground. Fleeting memories that she would never forget flickered before her eyes. Besides the lake where fireflies danced, she shed her armor, relishing the refreshing breeze and coolness of the night. She observed fireflies alighted on the back of her hand, their wings gracefully fluttering. Despite their tiny size, they shined brighter than the stars at night. Darkness enveloped her. The remnants of the swarm and her shattered armor disintegrated, dissipating like silent snowfall across the universe. Oh yeah, to answer your question, Cole, about why the armor didn't just disintegrate from the explosion, obviously because Firefly could just summon it again later. So clearly the armor just was stored in whatever pocket dimension that she keeps it in when it's not on. But anyways, when she regained consciousness from her coma, she found herself in an unfamiliar galaxy. Luminescent cosmic plankton were drawn to her, swirling and dancing around her. She watched as they dispersed in the distance, unaware of where her journey would lead. For what do we die? For what do we live? The concept of a dream remained elusive as she stared into the boundless darkness, grappling with the search for answers. And thus the Republic of Glamoth met its downfall, leaving behind mere rumors about the Iron Cavalries. She became alert as she realized that something had taken possession of her armor. All Iron Cavalries were genetically engineered babies to ensure control over the Republic's most powerful weapon. They each carried a predetermined genetic defect that would accelerate their aging at a certain spot of their life, leading to premature death. As the footsteps drew nearer, the woman's voice grew clearer. A predetermined fate, much like ours, wouldn't you agree? The door of the cabin opened. Flames enveloped her body as her molten knight armor materialized. Who are you? The woman before her smiled as if they were old friends reuniting after a long time. Do you believe in fate? Those who walk in the same direction will eventually find their peers, and now here we meet. So this is why we know this must be the same story, because this must be the same battle, because immediately after that battle, she meets Kafka. So it cannot be any other battle. It has to be the same battle. And yet the description is different. Why is it? How can we rationalize this? Maybe the history fiction novel just got into it. The problem with that is the character stories are not written from an in-universe perspective. This is like an out of universe perspective, so it should be objective and true, but it's not. I would go with the animated short over this story. For instance, lots of differences. For one thing, the Swarm Mother was out to deliver, so that wasn't her in the animated short, that was someone else. Herself. Another one, she detonated a bomb. There was no bomb involved. There was first there was some kind of laser. You could potentially say that maybe that laser was actually a bomb. I don't know. But finally, destroying the entire planet, there was clearly no bomb there. Firefly didn't have any kind of bomb on her when she did that. Unless the bomb was so small, we couldn't even see it. Which is, yeah, sure. I don't think the idea of the Glamoth having planet-destroying grenades or whatever that you could just hide on your person, I don't think that's a better interpretation either. But yeah. This character story has there's a lack of consistency here, unfortunately. Finally, another tranquil night unfolded. As she often did, she sat in silence on higher ground, observing the flickering lights. Countless ships gracefully entered and departed the harbor until the break of dawn. So this is a time skip. This is talking about right before she goes to Penacony. I heard they rewrote part of it. I hadn't heard anything about that, Tommy, but probably. There was definitely a rewrite somewhere in this process. Silverwolf yawned and walked to her. Can't sleep? She moved away to make some room. Yeah, I had a weird dream about Punk Lord being invaded by cyber demons, so I kept running around, sticking those viruses with my bunny gum. Bunny gum. Bubble gum. And then I woke up. A dream. Leaving for Penacony? Yes, perhaps there I'll find my own dream. But for someone who can't dream at all, the pain caused by entering the synesthesia dreamscape is more terrible than death. Yeah, I know. My consciousness will be crushed by the weight of memoria and then get reconstructed in a peculiar manner. This is the only way for me to enter the land of dreams. However, death doesn't frighten me, as I've grown used to it. Fine. Wish you the best of luck, and don't forget to say hello to the express crew for me. Cyber demons, Doom mentioned. I'm probably more literal. Anyways. The rest of this, my throat kind of hurts. I've been talking a lot more than normal today. So I'm not going to read the rest of this because I don't really think there's any important lore in the end there. Basically, just Firefly can't dream normally. And I guess also her consciousness has been reconstructed at some point, so maybe her personality changed by going to Penacony. Don't know. That is all just speculation at that. But yes, it is about time to end stream. We had, right on time, managed to cover everything I wanted to talk about, essentially. I think we did pretty good then. It's just a theory, a game theory. Yes. And just chatting is hard. I thought I talked a good amount during the streams, but evidently I talk way more during this than I normally do. Anyways, thank you all for tuning in today. I hope you all enjoyed my first attempt at doing a deep dive into a lore stream. I suppose this counts as a just chatting stream. Maybe? I don't know. Nice show. You didn't know the Empress may actually be a power up? Yeah. Unless you read all the item descriptions. Also, there's a lot of stuff in the simulated universe events that goes into the lore, especially stuff regarding Aeons. Like, unless you read all that stuff, there is so much lore that you would never figure out. You're basically talking the whole time. Yeah, pretty much. Other than when we were watching the trailers for like a few minutes. Anyways, that is all for today. Speaking of fighting bugs, probably be playing Helldivers tomorrow. Unless, okay, the only possibility that is not Helldivers tomorrow is if I decide to start playing Elden Ring. Go back to Elden Ring instead. Slight possibility of that. But until then, you can assume there will be more Helldivers tomorrow. We're going to fight more bugs. Maybe not, or maybe not bugs. Maybe bots. Well, thank you all for tuning in, and until then, I hope you all have a wonderful start to your weekend and a wonderful night. Good night, everyone. Good night.